Hello, my name is Erik Rucker. I'm a lead program manager on Microsoft Word, and I'll be talking to you today about the new version of Microsoft Word, Word 10. We had three focuses for Word 10. The first was to improve collaboration. We really wanted to make Word the best tool for gathering information and for writing and reviewing documents in teams of people. Second, we wanted to continue our long-standing tack of making Word even easier to use. We wanted to make common tasks that folks do every day even easier and ensure that they can have a more successful and smoother experience with the product. Finally, we wanted to leverage some great new technologies and showcase some new technology to enable great new scenarios that folks haven't been able to do either inside Office or anywhere else in the world before. So collaboration in Word. Our goal here was quite simple. We wanted to beat the pen. There are three pluggable tasks that make up collaboration as we saw it. The first is gathering information. This is going out and getting a set of input from the different people that make up a team. A perfect example of this is a monthly report. Maybe a manager sends out a template to her team of employees, and they all fill in a section of this report, and they send it all back to her. She needs to accumulate all of that information into a single document. The second case is really the most common, and this is reviewing a document. Either a single person or a team has created a single document, and it needs to get routed to a number of people in order to get their comments and changes on this document. When those comments and changes come back, they need to be melded into the main copy so that you've got a final copy. If you do this electronically today, getting that document back electronically, everybody that's touched the document has messed up the formatting. So cleaning up formatting is the final step of collaboration inside Word. The process today is very ad hoc, and the current solutions are really quite rigid. You can get on the collaboration bus with some of the competing products, but you can't choose where to stop. You're really forced into their view of collaboration, and their view doesn't leverage common practices. For example, emailing a document around. Everybody that sends a document for review today does it via attaching the document to an email, sending it around. You get the changes back almost always on paper today, and that's really where we need to beat the pen. But the competition's products don't leverage things as simple as email. There are four different components of collaboration as we've built support in Office 10. The first is send for review. And this really means the document review starts with an attachment. You attach a document to an email message, send it out, and we do a bunch of smart things to enable you to merge that document back in when it returns to you. The second is improved merging. We get those changes back, and you need to be able to do the merge to get the changes into your master copy of the document. Markup is a new feature, and it's a whole new way to show changes and comments inside the master copy of a document. Make it much easier to work with and review the changes that the other people on the team have made. Finally, we've got some killer formatting tools, and this allows you to easily clean up the mess afterwards. Send for review, as I said, automatically prepares a document for collaboration via email. All that you need to do inside Word is attach a Word document to an email message and send it out. The reviewer then gets some reviewing tools, including a return review button, making it much easier to figure out how to send that document back when she's done making her edits. When the document comes back, the author is prompted for a merge. You'll see a little alert box in the upper right-hand corner here. And what's happened is that the author has received an email back from the reviewer, has opened up the attachment. Word has recognized that this document is one that got sent out for review. It came back, and now you're pretty likely to want to merge those changes back in. All that you need to do is click yes, and the changes will be merged back into the master copy on your local machine. This happens automatically inside Word. There's a special button inside PowerPoint and Excel because the way that they deal with merge is a little bit different than Word. The first question that most large organizations are going to ask when they see this is, well, that sounds great, but what about the storage mechanism for all of the goo that tells us how this document relates to the other documents in collaboration? And that mechanism is quite secure. In fact, the only thing that gets embedded into the document is a random number that allows us to identify that particular document. And then we keep track of some things on the user's local machine that allow us to know where the master copy is and how to merge it when it comes back. All of that stuff that was quite secure. Merging documents in Word before has been quite hard to use. There were two different features in Word 10, or excuse me, in Word 9. One was called compare documents, the other was merge documents. They were both really picky. One of them required that you had track changes on all the time. The other required that you'd never had track changes on, but that the two documents shared a close common ancestor. Because they were so complicated and there was so much seeming overlap between the two, but nobody could figure out how to use them, they generally weren't used. And the way that people would merge documents inside Word 2000 was to get the copies back electronically if they got them that way, print them out on pieces of paper, lay them all out on the desk next to your computer, and look across all of the pieces of paper and type the final answer that you want into your machine. Not a very efficient way to merge changes back together, and Word 10 has improved that dramatically. We've now got merge inside Word 10 that's called compare and merge documents. Both things happen at once, and so we always get all of the changes in a document. If track changes has been turned on, we'll just bring those track changes across. But if somebody has turned off track changes, or if they never turned it on, we always do a compare so that we can always find all of the changes in the document. This also prevents somebody from hiding some changes by turning off track changes and maybe changing the cost of the contract from $10,000 to $10 and sending it back hoping that you won't find it. Word's merge changes functionality will pick that up. In addition, we do a much better job today of finding formatting changes in Word 2000 or in Word 10. We can pull those changes out and allow you to work with them in a much better way. Finally, we're a lot smarter about showing the changes, so that we just highlight the thing that has changed, whereas before, even if you could get the merging mechanism to work inside Word, we would often highlight a big section of text and note that it had all changed. In the current version of Word, or in Word 10, we will be very smart about showing just the text that changed. Markup is a whole new feature that is a great new way to show changes and comments. It works just like notes on paper. If you're working on a piece of paper, you want to delete some text, you draw a line through it. If you want to add some text, instead of cramming it in between the letters on the page, you'll insert it off on the margin and draw a little arrow that shows where the text should be anchored inside the main document. What this does is it preserves the layout of the document. So if you've got two different people who are reviewing a document, they're not in the same room, they're talking on the telephone, they can talk about the document correctly because they know what is where in the document. The thing that's at the top of page 3 is still at the top of page 3. With Word's current mechanism for showing changes in the document, we show both insertions and deletions in line. And this means that the flow of the document changes, and you can no longer talk about the first paragraph on page 3 because it's completely different for the two different folks looking at different copies of the doc. In addition, markup allows us to have great filtering. You can filter by type of insertion or type of change, and then filter by each of the authors. So it's really easy to go through, choose what changes you want to look at. And for example, it's very easy to go through and accept all of the changes that maybe came from the lawyers on my side of a contract deal, and then scrupulously review the changes that come from the lawyers on the other side of the contract deal. We've got very simple accept and reject mechanisms. You can right-click on any change and accept and reject. You can also walk through them all. And we've got multiple views on markup. Let me show you what markup looks like. You'll see on the screen here that off to the right-hand side are some balloons floating in the margin. These show where text has been deleted from the document. And there's a comment floating there too. You can see third from the bottom. All of these things are anchored by little dotted lines off into the document. And inserted text is shown underlined inside the document. If I hover over any of the balloons or any of the inserted text, I get to find out who made the change and when it was made. And I can right-click on any of the things and accept or reject them. Up at the top, you'll see a new reviewing toolbar. On the left-hand side of this reviewing toolbar is a drop-down noting that this is the final version of the document and showing markup. Final version means that insertions show in line and any deletions are off in the margin. And so if I just look at the body of this document, I can see what the final version of the document is going to look like if I was to accept all of the changes. If I drop down that control on the left-hand side of the toolbar, I can switch between a number of different views. So I can look at the final version of the document with no markup showing at all. This allows me to really see what the thing's going to look like if I just choose accept all changes. I can also look at the original version with markup, and this is the thing that would allow me to work with this document over the telephone with somebody else. And I can look at the original version just as it was sent out. I can hide all of the markup. Next to that drop-down is a menu for show, and this allows me to filter by comments, insertions, and deletions or formatting. So I can look at just the type of changes that I like, and then I can turn on or off filtering for any of the different reviewers. So if I want to work through any one person's edits, I can easily do that by turning off the other folks and just looking at one set of comments. Moving across the toolbar to the right, there's a couple of buttons for forward and back that will walk you through all of the changes and comments in a document. The checkbox will accept a change. The X will delete a change or delete a comment. And then over on the far right side is a little tool that will drop down a reviewing pane. If there's too much text to fit inside a balloon, or if there are too many balloons to fit on the side of a page, we'll coalesce these balloons, add some ellipses, and link down to a pane that goes across the bottom of Word. This pane can show any of the and all of the edits inside the Word document, and in fact can be printed out on its own. So many folks in the legal industry would like to get a printout of just the things that have changed in a document. You can easily do that with the reviewing pane. As I mentioned before, the aftermath of collaboration is ugly. Everybody that touches a document electronically somehow manages to introduce new formatting. Cleaning up this formatting is really hard in Word 2000. The first reason for that is because it's very hard to find all of the different formatting. In addition, it's hard to tell how the formatting was done, and if somebody has used a feature that you're not familiar with, it can be quite hard to remove that formatting. In fact, if we go visit customers, we can find entire departments of people dedicated to cleaning up collaboration, cleaning up documents that have been collaborated upon. Of course, formatting isn't just a collaboration problem, but it fits in very well to the scenario here. In order to address this problem, we've created a thing called a formatting work pane. This is a collection of all of the formatting in your document, and all of the entries in this work pane work like styles. So if I create some direct formatting in my document, I get an entry in this pane off to the right-hand side of the doc. And I can click on that collection of formatting and use it to format any other text in my document. In addition, I can select all text that has that formatting and modify all of the formatting in one go. So it's just like rippling a change to a style through the rest of a document. If I do want to work with word styles, all that I need to do to create a style from some formatting in my document is to click on the style and give it a name. And if I want to work with styles more directly, I want to hand create styles, we've got a much more easy to use Styles UI now. So it's a lot easier to get at the common tools that you need to create those styles. Let's take a look at the formatting pane here. You'll see I've got a document open in the main portion of the main body of Word, and off to the right-hand side is a work pane that contains all of the formatting in my document. You can see some of the formatting entries there have a little paragraph mark off to the right-hand side, and those are the ones that are real styles. Everything else is just direct formatting inside Word collected up. You'll see I've hovered over one of the selections here, and in a tooltip below the selection, it tells me what the formatting is. So it's body text with some bold font properties added to it. If I drop down the menu on the right-hand side of that, I can select all 29 instances. Word now supports multi-selection, so I can select discontiguous chunks of text in my document. And if you look, I've already done that in this document. So you can see a bunch of different selections all concurrently being selected. If I'd like to then reformat that in a different way, I can use either the formatting tools up on Word's regular toolbars or the formatting tools in the formatting pane to reformat the text. If I want to change it into a style, all I need to do is click on Modify Style, and I can go through and easily change that text. Another problem that many folks have had, as I mentioned before, is that clearing off formatting can be quite difficult. We've created a new entry to the Style pane here that's called Clear Formatting. And if I've got some text in my document that's formatted in some kind of a quirky way that maybe I don't understand, perhaps the user has used character styles and I don't know how those work, I can simply select that text and click on Clear Formatting. We'll blow away all of the formatting and bring it back to a simple starting point, something that's very close to the normal style for the template, and allow the user to start over and begin reformatting their document. Finally, we've had, for as long as I can remember, requests to match the WordPerfect's Reveal Codes feature. We didn't really want to clone WordPerfect's feature because that feature is really a quite geeky thing. Really what it is another text-based user interface to their application. We didn't want to create a new user interface for Word, and we certainly didn't want all of our users to have to learn a whole new set of text-based commands in order to make that thing work. So what we did is we created a new work pane called Reveal Formatting. If I select some text in my document, you'll see I've got a paragraph selected here, and I pull up the Reveal Formatting work pane, I can easily see all of the formatting that's been applied to that text. And you'll notice that At the top of each block of formatting there is a blue hyperlink. If I click on that hyperlink, it'll tunnel me to the right UI inside Word to be able to change that formatting. So we've leveraged our current UI and made reveal codes much easier to use in Word 10 than they are in WordPerfect. And they've got all of the power that you'd expect from reveal codes. The final thing that I'll talk about with collaboration here is something that we're calling fake multi-user documents. We've had requests for many years to build real multi-user documents, a file format that multiple people could work on at the same time. This is extremely hard to do inside Word, and we've never successfully been able to do it. However, we've got great merge functionality now, and that allows us to fake it pretty well. By using this merge functionality, we can allow multiple people to work on a single file at one time. What happens is that one person tries to open the file, and if it's already locked, she can get a local copy of the file. And so there's actually two different files being worked on. But when the user needs to merge her changes back in, we automatically help her merge them. We've got this great new merge functionality to make it work, and it all just behaves as she'd expect. In fact, the user with the forked copy gets a prompt when the shared copy is freed. So she doesn't even have to be able to go find the thing or anything. All that she needs to do is click yes to one dialog box, and she is set. There are multiple entry points for this. The first and most common one is if one user tries to open a file that's been locked by another user. In the current version of Word, you get an alert that has two different entries on it that both essentially say you lose. The new version of Word will have a third entry on there that says, would you like to create a local copy and merge your changes in later? All that you need to do is click on that. A local copy will be created, and you can merge those changes in when you're done. The other place that this is made available is through the File Save As dialog. So if you try and save a copy of a document on top of another copy of the document with the same name, in the current version of Word, you'll get an alert saying, do you want to blow away the changes in the copy that's already on disk? The new version of Word has that option, but it also has the option to merge your changes into that local copy too. So if somebody else has touched the file while you've got the copy forked off, you can merge into that copy and not lose their changes. Ease of use has been a goal of ours for quite some time inside Word, and the goal here is really to save time and frustration in common tasks. We know from our user research that there's a fairly small core set of features that users use inside Word very many times a day. And our key goal is to make those everyday tasks even simpler. Second, we wanted to put the user back in control. There are a whole bunch of automatic features inside Word, and over the last few versions, users have been gradually feeling like they're losing control of the application, that the application is doing things for them. And when it's right, that's great, but when it's wrong, it's very hard to fix the problems. Finally, we also know from our user research that in spite of the fact that there's this core group of features that everybody uses all the time, the tail on the feature use is extremely long. And there's a good-sized group of features that everybody uses, but they don't use all the time. The perfect example of this is mail merge. This is used by most Word users at some point, but they only do it once a year, maybe once a month, something like that. And our goal here is to make it so that users can more easily be successful at those features and can run through them when they need to do them on a rare but periodic basis without having to resort to help or getting out a book or anything like that. So making Word easier to use. We've talked about formatting and styles, but we've done a bunch of other work to make table formatting and list formatting much easier to work with in Word 10. WordMail is on by default in Word 10. This means that Word is the default editor for Outlook, and so creating Outlook email messages will leverage all of the power of Word. We've created a new feature called Smart Tags, which allows you to fine-tune automatic behavior and fix up automatic rule errors. And we've created a drawing canvas. This gives you a container for working on drawings inside Word. And finally, I mentioned mail merge before, and mail merge is one of the areas that we focused on this time. And we believe from our user research with the new version of mail merge that mortals can succeed in doing mail merge now without having to resort to help. Formatting, as I said, we already saw a lot of this, but we did a bunch of work inside lists to make them much easier and more predictable for users. There are a whole bunch of list rules that take place when you click on the bullet and numbering button, or even when you use the dialog. We need to figure out what the format of the number should be, whether it should continue the list above or restart a new list, and so forth. And we've done a bunch of work to make those rules smarter so that they behave much more as the user would expect. In addition, we've made lists selectable. In previous versions of Word, you couldn't click on the number. It looked like it's part of the document's text, but it's actually not something that you could click on. In the current version of Word, you can click on that number. You can type over it to change the starting point of the number, or even to change the type of number from, say, numbers to letters. Or you can apply formatting to that letter. We did some usability tests with this with experienced Word users and brought them into the usability lab and said, we'd like you to change all the numbers in this document to red. The first thing that every single user that we brought in did is reached over, grabbed the mouse, pulled it over, clicked on the number, clicked on the red button, and they were done. This is the way that they clearly thought that this feature should work, but they were all experienced Word users, and they've never been able to do that in Word before. In fact, in Word before, it would have taken about 3 dialog boxes in order to make that work. So this should be a great feature for list users. In addition, for very powerful list users, we've created a new feature called list styles that allow much more fine-grained control over the application of lists. This allows a user with a corporate style sheet, and very often law firms have these because legal users are quite particular about their numbering use, to create a set of list formats and add that set of list formats to a list of formats and simply apply them. This avoids any of the automatic rules that take place when the user is trying to make use of the numbering gallery. The numbering gallery follows a bunch of rules that determine which number formats go in which box on the little gallery. And quite often, if you've created a complex numbered list, it can walk off the end of the gallery, and so you can't get at your number formatting anymore. The list styles dialog, or the list styles tabs to the bulletin numbering dialog, will allow you to simply create a set of formatting, give it a name, and it'll stay there until you delete it. In addition, changes ripple through list styles just like regular styles. They're just another flavor of style. So if, for example, your firm style sheet changes, you can easily update the list style, and those changes will ripple through all of the lists in a document. Similar to list styles, we've got a thing called table styles now, which are a new way to format tables. And in fact, it's like a custom table auto format. Formatting tables is quite complex inside Word manually because you've got to deal with each separate cell of the table. The table auto formats made that a lot easier, but there were only a few of them built inside Word. They didn't fit most people's needs. And so table styles provide a way to automatically or to create things that are very much like auto formats. In addition, these rules are very smart about the way that the formatting is preserved when the shape of the table changes. So if you've applied a set of formatting to a table, for example, that has stripes in the table, maybe like green bar paper, inside Word 9, if you were to do that and you were to add some rows in the middle of the table, we'd mess up the striping. In fact, you'd be likely to end up with 2 white or 2 green stripes next to each other. Inside Word 10, we understand that that portion of the table is supposed to be striped, and we'll go back and reformat that part of the table so that the stripiness remains intact. I mentioned Word Mail, and Word is now the default email editor for Outlook 10. In order for us to be turned on by default, we did a lot of performance work in WordMail, and the speed is now comparable to that of Trident. So WordMail inside Word 10 will run about as quickly as regular Outlook email did inside Outlook 9. In addition, we've done a bunch of work to prevent dialog blocking. This means that you can pull open the file Open Dialog inside Word, for example, and switch over to Outlook and open an email message. If you tried that inside Word 9, Outlook would beep at you because it wouldn't be able to get a hold of Word. It would be blocked by this modal dialog. Inside Word 10 and Outlook 10, it will open the mail message just as you'd expect. In addition, we've got a tool to switch mail formats on the fly. This format switching is something that's been taken care of in the past by email gateways, but it's a somewhat error-prone mechanism, and it's a little bit hard to tell what the final version of the email is going to look like. In Word 10 now, if I'm creating an email message and I know that it's going to somebody who can only receive plain text email, it's easy for me to reach up onto the toolbar, pull down a little drop down, and switch the format of that mail message to plain text email. I can then see what the mail message is going to look like, change any formats that I might want, and send it off and be certain that it will show up in the proper plain text format when it gets to my receiver's mailbox. And of course, with WordMail on by default, all of the great Word features that you're used to for typing, things like red squiggles for misspelled word and autocorrect and so forth, are there when you're working in email. Smart tags are a new feature that allows users to clean up after automatic functionality. We know from our research that automatic functions in Word are very often right. In fact, they're right about 95% of the time. But we also know that when they're wrong, it's extremely annoying, and that fixing the problems can be quite painful. For example, if you're typing some language other than English inside Word, for example, Swedish, you'll type a lot of lowercase i's. Word will go through and uppercase all of those i's because it thinks that you're typing incorrect personal pronouns. However, in Swedish, that thing is supposed to be lowercase, and it's quite hard to get it to go back to lowercase after it has been uppercased. The most common thing that we see in the lab is somebody will go back and select the uppercase one and retype it as a lowercase. And of course, Word recognizes that the user has created a lowercase I again and automatically corrects it for him again. And in fact, will do that forever. Smart tags provide a way to fix up errors like that. And they're available for automatic features like autocorrect. They're available for lists. As I mentioned before, lists are an extremely automatic part of Word. There's a ton of rules that govern what the behavior of the bulleting button and the other list tools will be. And smart tags allow you to tailor the behavior of those rules. And they allow you to tailor the behavior of pasted text. If you copy text from one document to another or one application to another, Word will automatically try and reformat that text to match the destination document, but now it'll provide a smart tag that will allow you to change any of the formatting that it might have gotten wrong. You'll see a smart tag in the bottom of the slide here where there's a small sentence that I've typed. I typed 1 period space space the first sentence. And when I hit enter, Word turned that into an automatic list, just as it would have done inside Word 9. There's a fairly unobtrusive little widget that sits off to the left-hand side of the text inside Word. You're not seeing that here. You're seeing the brighter version of the widget. What happens if I want to change the behavior of Word is that I move my mouse and I hover over that small widget. When I hover over it, it turns into this button that you see with a drop-down. When I click on the button, you see the menu that's present here. And inside that menu, I've got an option to undo the automatic numbering. So if I want to undo this automatic numbering, I can do it right there. I don't need to use the undo mechanism inside Word, because if I had to undo that, it would delete all of the words that I typed first. In addition, I can find the option to stop automatically creating numbered lists. This is an option that's always been inside Word, but it's been extremely difficult for users to find. So this is a great way for users to tailor the behavior of the automatic features. And there's a tunnel here to the autocorrect options dialog if the user wants to create or tailor more features than this particular one at this time. Drawings inside Word have been quite difficult to work with in the past. The reason for this is that the drawing objects try and relate to each other through Word's one-dimensional document stream. But really, the drawing should be a two-dimensional thing, much like drawing inside PowerPoint. The drawing canvas provides you a sandbox in which to work, and it's a two-dimensional area in which to create drawing objects so that the objects relate to each other inside that area. Word just worries about the canvas as a whole, so when you copy and move your drawing around, it behaves as a single object. You don't end up with part of your drawing pasting or breaking to one side of a page break and part of it moving down to the other. It all behaves as a single whole, as you'd expect. In addition, the fact that we're in this two-dimensional space allows us to provide support for much more sophisticated drawing objects than we've got today. So we've got support for things like connectors, so I can create two little boxes inside Word, draw a connector between the two of them, and then as I move one of the boxes around, the connector will automatically update itself so that it's still pointing between the two boxes. And using connectors and boxes, we've got support for a built-in organization chart, which is something that folks have been asking for quite some time in Word. I mentioned mail merge before as the perfect example of a feature that many people use, but they use relatively rarely. And the current version inside Word 9 is quite hard to use. It's a wizard, but you need to exit and re-enter the wizard several times in order to finish the process. And most users end up failing at some point before they're done with the process. Now the wizard works like a real wizard. You bring it up and it stays up until you're done. It lives in a task pane off to the right-hand side of the screen, much like the formatting task pane that you saw before. So there's no need to close the wizard. We've got improved database connectivity. We're using OLEDB to hook up to the database records now. And this allows you to do much more sophisticated filtering than you were able to do before. In fact, you don't need to write a real fancy query in order to choose the right folks to send your mail message to. All that you need to do is write a rough query to, say, pull all the people out of your contacts list. You then get a list of all of the people that are in the mail merge, and you can check and uncheck them all in that list. We'll send the mail merge letters only to the people who are checked. Word now works directly with Outlook contacts, so if you do want to send a mail merge to people who are in your contacts list, You no longer need to export that contacts list to Excel and monkey around with it there. We'll just work with it directly in Outlook. We've got intelligent fields that'll adapt to missing data. So if you're sending a letter to Mr. and Mrs. Jones, but there's no Mrs. Smith, well, we'll automatically be smart and get rid of the and. And finally, we've got a number of templates that'll help users get started. You don't even need to worry about pulling the right fields out into your mail message in order to put names and addresses in there or so forth. There's 10 different pre-made templates that'll help the user through this part of the process, and then the mail merge wizard will help them hook the letter that's been created up to their contacts or whatever source for their mail merge they're using. Let's take a quick look at this. You'll see I've got the mail merge wizard up here on the right-hand side of Word. And in the beginning of the wizard, you're prompted to select what type of document you're working on. You'll see down at the bottom of that list, about midway down the page, that there's a description of what that type of document is. Letters is pretty self-explanatory, but I'm not quite sure what a directory is. So if I was to click on that, I'd get a brief one-paragraph description of what a directory is. I can then click on Next down at the bottom of the page and walk through the rest of the wizard. And we've used this kind of web-like metaphor to allow users to understand what's going on inside the wizard while they're working. It's got much more information in it than a common Office dialog box. So, great new technology inside Office. We've got support now for voice and handwriting recognition. In addition, we've got improved support for East Asian typing. We've got some things called custom smart tags, and there's a fellow named Jeff Rayner who will be along later in the month to talk about all of these different types of technology. But I'm going to go through today and steal his thunder a little bit and describe these things briefly. Hopefully this will work as an advertisement for his 2 talks next week. Voice recognition is available in all of the Office applications. Dictation is available everywhere, but you'll have the smoothest experience inside Word. The reason that the experience will be a little bit smoother inside Word is that we've put a lot of effort into correctly allowing the user to correct errors inside the application and to work with the voice text inside the document. We expect that the accuracy of our speech recognition engine will be about on a par with those from IBM and Lernout and Housby and Dragon and so forth, but we expect that the time that it takes a regular user to get from beginning to dictate a document to having a completed and correctly dictated document after all of the errors are fixed up to be considerably shorter inside Office than it is inside any of the competitors' applications. And the reason for that is we've put a big focus on usability. Error correction is crucial for performance of any speech recognition application because speech is an error-prone mechanism. And error correction inside Office is available through the regular UI. All that you need to do is right-click on an error inside your document, and in the context menu that pops up will be a number of different alternatives for you to select from. In addition, we've got a completely different user model than the competition does. The competition advertises that they've got modeless behavior, and this means that the user can switch back and forth from dictating to commanding the application. And their speech recognition software is supposed to automatically figure out what the user intended to do and to do the right thing. This is an extremely hard problem because the system not only has to understand what the user said, it has to understand what she meant. And it turns out that they're not very good at it. The problems that arise here are quite painful. You can imagine if you're dictating a document, maybe you're not looking at your screen 100% of the time. You're kind of gazing out the window where you're talking to your document. And with this modeless behavior, you'll often look back over at your monitor and you'll see that halfway through the text that you dictated, the system thought that you made some kind of a command, so it pulled open a dialog box. That the other half of the text that you've dictated is in the first edit control on that dialog box. And now in order to finish your dictation, you've got to cancel out of the dialog box, put the focus back in the main document, try to remember what you said before and redictate it all. But now you're going to pay a lot closer attention to what's going on the screen to make sure that the same error doesn't happen again. We've got some great highlight videos of usability tests that we've done with the competition's products that have these endless cycles of death of people trying to work through this modeless user model. To get around that, we've got a modal usage model. And the idea here is really dead simple. It's if you're going to dictate, tell us you're going to dictate, and then we'll put everything that you say in your document. If you're going to command, well, tell us you're going to command, and then everything that you say will be treated as a command. This entails a little bit more work on the user's part as far as telling us what the correct mode to be in is. But that is much easier than fixing up even a single one of these mode bias errors that you see in the competition's products. And this is really something that will improve ease of use for everybody. There is great commanding in all of the Office applications. And as I mentioned, a user who's dictating can switch back and forth between commanding and dictating, and can use voice to do both things. However, commanding is also really interesting for people who type quite fast. Maybe they type faster than they would be able to dictate using the current dictation tools. But by keeping their hands on the keyboard and using the voice for commanding, they can easily create a document much quicker than they could by typing and having to reach over and find the mouse anytime that they wanted to format something, maybe move the mouse around a little bit, find out where the mouse pointer is on the screen, then drag it over, click on the bold button, let go of the mouse, bring your hand back to the keyboard. It's a lot easier just to say bold and have the system do the right thing for you. Allows you to keep your hands on the keyboard and carry on. So voice has got great benefit for folks who aren't the fastest typists, but through commanding it can also really help out people who can type well. Handwriting is now supported inside Word through the same mechanism as speech. We've got support for a couple of different things here. We've got support for ink in the document, so I can scribble through a little pad attached to my computer and treat the ink that comes out of that pad as text inside Word. I can either convert that ink to text and have it behave just like regular Word text, or I can keep it as ink, but I can still do some pretty fancy things with that ink once it's inside Word. I can format it, I can make my handwriting bold or italic or underlined after I've created it, and I can do find and replace on ink text. In addition to writing with a little tablet that's attached to your computer, we can also work with your Palm PC. So if you're writing ink on your Palm PC, perhaps taking notes inside a meeting, you can bring your Palm back to your Palm PC back to your Office home machine, plug it in, sync it back up. That ink will be brought into Word, and you can either work with it as ink or convert it to text right on your desktop. Typing in East Asia is really quite difficult. The reason is that it behaves much like speech. The user types a set of sounds. They type what the letters or what the words sound like. And then there's a magic piece of software in the back called the IME that changes those sounds into the correct characters. That process is pretty hard, and the reason is that any given set of sounds might have a number of characters associated with them, and we've got to choose the right set of characters with the IME. The current version of this software and the way that all East Asian typing works today is that you can type a few sounds, you type a few phonemes, and then you need to manually convert that typing into some characters. You need to choose the right character out of the list there and say, okay, that's the one I want in my document. Most skilled typists in Japan will do this every 4 or 5 characters. So they'll type a few phonemes, they'll convert, use the spacebar to convert, hit the enter key to determine the text and blast it into their document. This means that they can't go back after that and ever see the phonetic stuff that they typed before we throw it away. And it means that they've got to hit maybe 25 or 30% more keys than they'd have to if they were typing some language where we could just keep the phonemes around. In the new version of Word, we'll be able to support just typing. All that the user will need to do is type the phonemes. We'll automatically convert that text into the proper characters or into our best guess of the proper characters. And we'll determine that text and blast those characters into the document. However, we never throw away the phonetics that the user has typed unless she asks us to. And this allows her to go back and correct that text at any time. So much like typing English, where I'll type a whole bunch of text, I'll type maybe a page of text and then go back and correct the errors later, I can now type Japanese in the same way. In addition, we can improve accuracy because we can go back and get a lot more context for converting the text in the document than we were previously able to do. When we're trying to figure out what characters to use for the phonemes that the user created, we can look around the text where she is now, figure out what it is that she's talking about, and then make a better guess as to what the right characters to use are. Custom smart tags utilize the little widgets that we saw before that allow you to fine-tune automatic behavior and use those widgets in a totally new way that nobody's done before. They allow you to recognize part of the user's typing and offer actions based on that recognition. This is a way to begin to leverage the content of a user's document instead of just helping the user create that document in an easier fashion. There are some built-in recognitions and actions for things that we know are common to everybody. We recognize people, places, and times, and so forth. and lets you take action on those things in a smart way. We can let you send email to people or add them to your contacts list or schedule a meeting at a place at a particular time. However, the thing that's really great about this feature is that it's extensible. Everybody deals with people, places, and times and things like that, but they don't often pull those things into Outlook. They don't do that all the time. However, each organization has some type of data that they do use all the time. In the development organization here, we've got a bug database where we track issues with the products and ongoing work items. And we deal with bug mail all the time. I'll get mail that has some arcane number in it, and I need to go look that bug up in the database. I'll pull that information out today and either remember it or write it down and switch over to a database query tool and look the thing up through there. With Word 10, all that I need to do is right-click on that thing. We've written a recognizer and an action that looks it up in a database. I right-click on it, and it automatically is pulled up for me. Each organization that we've talked to has had some kind of data like this. For marketing-type organizations, things like account names are used all the time. Wouldn't it be great to be able to right-click on an account name and pull them up in a customer resource manager? For legal users, you can imagine anytime that you saw a legal case citation, you could click on that citation and pull open the case in Lexis or in Westlaw. So the fact that this is extensible makes it so that any organization can really begin to take advantage of the content of their documents in a really rich way. This is going to be one of the key features of the .NET strategy, and it's something that has slipped into the current version of Office. And so you'll be able to see the beginnings of where we're going with this today, or in Office 10. So Word 10 is great for groups. It's much easier for groups of users to author and review documents. And it's much easier for them to work together to get the right results at the end of their collaboration. It's easier than ever to use. Everyday tasks like formatting are much easier. And in fact, there's a group of tasks that folks don't do every day, but that are really common and have been quite hard to do in Word before, that are also much easier. There's a set of cool new technology. We're doing some things that nobody's ever done before with custom smart tags. And we've got great support for speech and handwriting input. We've got great support now for improved East Asian typing. And so the new version of Word will make it much easier to do things that users commonly do by taking advantage of some of this new cutting-edge technology. That takes care of my talk for today. And